So, Naoko Mori,
Hello.
welcome to Screenjabber.
Hi.
So you've dabbled in the British television industry for some years now, playing in some of my favourite shows, I've got to admit. You were Sarah, Safi's friend in Ab Fab years ago.
Yes.
How much fun was Ab Fab to do? And do you keep in touch with the cast?
Yes, that was amazing. What's hilarious is the first Ab Fab I did was when I was like 17. And it was funny because two things. One, I kind of didn't get it. And it was such a new and different comedy. I kind of didn't understand. Plus, I was kind of young. The other was my agent at the time told me actually not to do it. I had two words to say, yes and yes. It was a one-off guest appearance, and she actually told me not to do it because it was new and she wasn't sure it would be the right move. Famous last word. I mean, literally, sort of. And then 10 years later, it's like one of those shows that is just.
It's a cult favourite.
I know.
Absolute cult favourite.
Great fun, but kind of scary at the same time because I think comedy is always a difficult medium, difficult genre because the worst thing you can do is try and be funny. But the good news was Sarah, also known as Titicaca, is kind of a strange character. But you're in a room with a number of, the funniest people in England. You have Jennifer writing, you have Ruby Wax script editing, so it used to kind of scare me a little bit. But great people and great fun.
So you're probably best known for the role of Toshiko Sato, first on Doctor Who and then on Torchwood for 2 seasons. How much fun was that, and how much fun is John Barrowman to work with? He's a larger-than-life character.
Yeah, I mean, really, what's lovely about John is what you see is what you get. Incredibly down-to-earth, funny, warm, generous, outrageous. We used to get in so much trouble on Torchwood. We were like sort of naughty school children on set, always getting told off for making too much noise. And if I told you what used to go on set, I mean, it's like
please share.
I've known John actually for a long time. We worked together first time in Miss Saigon in the West End in about 1871, like 1,000 years ago. So it's great to be working with him again. But yeah, an incredible sort of turn of events. I did a guest appearance on Doctor Who, as I said, and I guess I must have done something right because I've been told that Russell was very pleased with what I did, and then kind of Torchwood happened, so it was a real surprise, and a nice surprise. Just to have the opportunity to work with Russell is like a huge tick off my bucket list or to-do list. So amazing, yeah.
Yeah, and now of course you're playing Yoko Ono in Lennon Naked for BBC4.
Yes.
How did it come about getting the role?
Well, my first. What happened first was my agent called me and told me that there was a possibility, and I actually kind of laughed and said, well, that's ridiculous, don't be ludicrous. Just because I'm a Japanese actress doesn't mean I can play, Yoko Ono. But I think primarily the biggest thing for me was I was kind of petrified. I've always been very curious about her. My brother is a huge Beatles fan. He's an artist, a painter artist as well, so he was heavily into her artwork, and he loved John Lennon. So my first experience with Yoko was when I was about 4 or 5, and we were living in New Jersey at the time, when they were there as well, and he came home with the new album, and it was a Sunday afternoon. My mum was in the kitchen cooking, my dad was reading a paper, and he was blaring the new album out, and it was the song Kiss, 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 which is quite explicit. And I remember thinking at the time, I knew of her, but I was thinking, why is she making those weird sounds? Not kind of understanding that she was actually having an orgasm sort of thing. And I just remember the horrified look on my parents' faces going, and I'm down listening to this thing. So I've always been curious about her because she's such an enigma, a very sort of mysterious, elusive woman who, almost like an ethereal person. So I've always been curious. And then so when I got the script, firstly the writing was what attracted me most. And then it was the idea of sort of the challenge, but at the same time I needed to do research first before I can make the decision, because she's such an iconic person and still alive as well, and I wanted to do a good job if I was going to do it, so I did a ton of research. And while I was doing the research, I found that I was understanding her more, and she became kind of 3D. It's almost like, because I never quite understood her, and I began to relate to her, I began to understand her in my own way. And that's when it kind of snowballed, and I was like into it. So I took on that project. And the other deciding factor for me, one of the biggest deciding factors, apart from the script and the challenge, was when I found that it was Chris who was playing John Lennon.
Christopher Eccleston, who you'd worked with on Doctor Who, of course.
Yes, funnily enough. And because when I asked them, because it's so much about John and Yoko and their chemistry, I initially asked them to tell me who was playing John Lennon, and they wouldn't tell me. And I was like, well, you have to. And they said, well, it's someone you'd work with. But I was like thinking, I've worked with so many different people, but there are literally only two people I could think of who could play the part, and Chris was the first name that popped into my head. So as soon as I knew that, not only was I convinced, A, we're on the right page, and B, it's Chris. I have to do it.
And you both look so much the part. The wigs are fantastic, actually.
Yeah, they've done an amazing job.
Yeah.
Amazing. Especially, we used to talk about it, it's like as soon as you put the wig on, it felt like you kind of morphed into them, and it just really helps you to, especially with someone like Yoko, because it was such a strong look for her, but it also explains a lot about her, I think. She's always struck me as being a private person, very dignified, but sort of shy, fundamentally, I think. And the hair is just kind of not a barrier, but just
a screen.
Yeah, a little bit of a screen.
Yeah, I get the impression the only person who really knew Yoko was John.
Yeah, or even sort of stopped to think and understand her. I think she was highly misunderstood. Or just plainly not understood. And she is an eccentric woman. She's a brave woman, inspirational, and she is truly avant-garde in so many ways. If you took her artwork and music and brought it to now, we have to remember this is 40 years ago. If you bring her artwork to now, to 2010, it would still be pretty cutting edge. Possibly avant-garde, because she's an intelligent woman. She's an incredibly sort of intellectual, intelligent, unique woman, and maybe 40 years ago in Britain, not so much sort of understanding, or plus she was foreign, all sorts. So I can understand the reaction she would have got, especially it's just coincided with when John himself is going through such a transformation, and so I can see why some people would have thought she was maliciously taking him away and breaking up the Beatles, but the truth is she didn't.